guys. Okay, so this is a double close deal, and this is a really cool strategy because basically you're kind of acting as the middleman in two separate transactions that are actually three transactions that are going on, all involving you. So, of course, what is step one? Step one is get the property under contract. Should be no surprise. If you're not out there making offers, you're not going to make any money. I hate to tell that to you, but it's true. Under contract. Now what I'm going to do here is actually make a little bit of a diagram just to sort of explain the steps, because I think it might make it a little bit easier, okay? So here is the contract, okay? So we'll say as the buyer, I know you probably can't read that, we'll put the buyer as you, and the seller is Mr. Seller, okay? You have negotiated the lovely price of $300,000. And you put down a $1 initial deposit to make the contract legal. It's what's called consideration. And maybe you've given yourself, let's call it 4 weeks for conditions. Now what conditions are is in that 4-week condition period of time, that's where you're going to be working to find a buyer. So 4 weeks of conditions, and then we'll say about 6 weeks to closing. And closing is when the transaction would actually complete. Okay, so now you've got this property, you put a $1 deposit on it, you've got an equitable interest in it, you can start marketing this property for sale. Let's say you got it at a pretty good discount, maybe it was a $400,000 property you got for $300,000 because it was trash inside or a foreclosure or an estate sale. I mean, once you get out there, you'll see there's all kinds of crazy situations that people will sell properties under market value. Divorce sales, they just, bought the property in 1990 and want to pass on the savings to somebody else. You will run into all kinds of situations, so just be prepared for everything. Anyways, so you've negotiated $300,000, maybe the place is worth $400,000. Now you market it on maybe Kijiji or Craigslist or through your network, maybe even your boss, someone you work with who has money and wants to get into real estate, maybe even somebody who's looking to buy their own house. You find a buyer who's willing to pay you, let's call it $330,000 for this property. Now, maybe it's worth $400,000, but you want to pass on a bit of a discount to somebody else. Don't be greedy. That's where a lot of real estate investors get kind of hung up, is they get a little bit too greedy. So instead of making $20,000, $30,000, they'll make zero because they think it's worth, well, it's worth $400,000, so I should get all $400,000. Make it a great deal for somebody else. That way you will always make money. Okay, so this is contract number one. There's basically 2 contracts in this deal and 3 lawyers. So it's a little bit complicated because an assignment of contract and an assignment of funds, you can actually do those without a lawyer being involved, and it actually, saves you about $900 to $1,000 and makes things a little bit simpler for everybody. But in this situation, there's going to be basically 3 transactions taking place and 3 closings. So step 1 is get the property under contract. Step 2, of course, like anything else, is find a buyer. Now, where will you find a buyer? Let me tell you this. You can put an ad on Kijiji saying $400,000 property for sale for $340,000, and trust me, your voicemail will be full by the next day. This is a hot market right now, even in a down market. Like when I was doing this in 2009, 2010, everybody hated real estate because it had just crashed. But if you've got a property 15, 20% under market value, you will get lots of calls. Don't worry. Just keep posting some ads and you'd be surprised how fast things can happen. Okay, so step 2 is find a buyer. And we said what they're going to do is they're actually going to buy it from you directly. So there's 2 contracts involved. There's contract number 1, contract number 2. So now in contract number 2, you are the seller. And the buyer is Mr. Buyer. Now, here's the cool thing about a double close. Is this Mr. Seller does not know this Mr. Buyer. You are the thing that connects them both. And now what they're going to do is they're going to pay, what did we say? $330,000. Okay? Now, when it's your contract, you can decide what kind of deposit you want. Now, when you're making offers, you usually want to put as little down as possible. I recommend never going more than $1,000 initial deposit. Sometimes I'll offer a $1 initial deposit and a $5,000 additional deposit that's paid only upon removal of conditions. Now, why would I do that? Well, it makes the offer more enticing, and that $5,000 does not come out of your pocket. It comes from this guy right here. So let's say you've got a deal with this guy. You're going to actually charge him a $5,000 initial deposit, which, of course, we used to pay this one. I'll show you later how to actually write in that this becomes released to you as soon as he pays it. So that I've run into that before where I forgot to put that, and I almost had to come up with the $5,000 out of my own pocket. But anyways, $5,000 initial deposit. We'll say we'll give him 2 weeks conditions, but it closes on the same date. So let's just choose, let's just say June 1st, June 1st. Okay, so he only has 2 weeks to get his conditions in order because, or his financing order, because what you want is you want this buyer to be unconditionally buying your property before you remove conditions. And that's how you protect yourself, with your knowledge. Because once it is an unconditional contract here, he must close, and you've gotten his deposit to pay him, no money down, right? And then you don't remove your conditions until this one's unconditional. So what happens on closing day is basically this. The money from, I'll use a different color so you can see it better. The money from the buyer goes to your lawyer. So here's actually your lawyer. So there's lawyer 1, lawyer 2, lawyer 3. So they all have to actually have separate lawyers. You would only pay your lawyer the closing costs, which is about, in Alberta, about $500 to $1,000 bucks, we'll say. They pay their lawyer, they pay their lawyer. So this guy gives $330,000 to your lawyer. Your lawyer says, hey, I've got the funds, give me the clear title. So the seller's lawyer says, okay, great, you got the funds, we'll give you the title. Title goes here. Now what ends up happening is the title goes to these guys, $300,000 goes to these guys. What does that leave you with? 30 grand minus legal fees. So this guy's got a free and clear property. This guy's got his $300,000. You've made your cut in the middle. Lawyer gets paid his deal. That's how you do a double close deal. So I mean, really these steps is step 1, get a property on a contract. Step 2, find a buyer like anything else. Step 3, lawyers. And I know this might seem all complicated and everything, but the lawyers deal with all of this stuff. They deal with all the money transfer, they deal with the title transfer, everything. All you are is you're talking to the buyer, you have a simple contract with him. You're talking to the seller, you have a simple contract with him. You show up at your lawyer's office with both of them. Here's my contract that I'm buying it. Here's my contract that I'm selling it. They're both closing on June 1st. That's an important thing to note. They both must close on the exact same day. And guess who come up with the funds? They did. Guess who got paid? You did. Okay, step 4. As always, go ahead and get paid. Now the reason I decided to make these into videos was so that you could actually go back and watch them again. Because this might be super confusing to you at first, it may not be, but you'll pick up things as you start doing it. What I recommend is watching this and then actually going and trying to put it into practice and then coming back and watching it again, because you'll have light bulbs go off. You'll go, oh right, I saw it, now I know what he was talking about, you know. Oh, that's how it's done. And maybe you'll even come back and have a story where you've made that kind of money. I've seen apartment deals where you can do this with anything. You can actually double close cars. You can double close mortgages. You can double close real estate. You can double close businesses. So if you can find deals and find buyers, you can make money all day long. But I've seen apartment deals where they've double closed and made $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. So you just gotta get out there, look at some deals and make some offers. Okay, that's how to do a double close deal.